Now, Manchester City just started the Premier League season in fantastic fashion, thrashing Wolves 4-0 at Molineux. Now, obviously, the star man was Tijjani Reijnders. With a goal and an assist, he controlled and was dominant in the game. And in this video, we're going to look at why his Premier League debut was so good and why he could be one of the signings of the summer. So let's get into it. Now, Tijjani Reijnders coming into Manchester City has a lot of expectations on him, which we all know. With Rodri being out injured and maybe other midfielders like Silva, Nico Gonzalez, even Gundogan, even on their way out, are not really favoured in loads of games. It's quite clear that Tijjani Reijnders is going to play in, I think, 90 to 100% of the games when he is fit. And I think in this game, it proved it. Now, first, we've got our little tactics board up, and we're going to have a look at how Manchester City were off the ball, because going into Tijjani Reijnders' sort of start for Man City, I was concerned mostly about the off-the-ball defending, then other things. Going forward, he is an incredible player, and I knew that already. What Manchester City did is when the ball was at this centre-back, which usually you saw the goalkeeper play to from the start over here, Haaland would basically stand in these sort of areas and then attack these spaces very quickly. You see a lot of strikers press like this, and not necessarily the best at tempo. It's very common like that to be, and I would say he's probably Man City's weakest presser, so you kind of want to go off of his instincts and when he decides to push up into that trigger. Now, he makes that movement into this area, and the entire time you can see the man-to-man press that Man City have. They don't bother marking this guy back here because, I mean, he's really far away and they kind of give up, and they allow Nico Gonzalez to kind of have like a free role in defence and midfield. I think this is the best way because it allows, look who we're talking about, Tijjani Reijnders, to have a complete free roam to do what he wants as well. Now, despite that, Tijjani Reijnders doesn't have a complete free roam because I am a bit of a liar there. He does have to still defend this guy. Most of the time he will follow this guy anywhere he goes, but it's majoritarily going to be on this sort of line. Maybe sometimes he'll come a little bit more into the centre, but he will be more willing to kind of follow the player deeper in these sort of areas and further forward if that player's gone to help this player who Haaland is pressing. Now, this shows a good idea of what I'm trying to say, despite it being slightly different. As you see, instead of Haaland actually being the one that jumps up to the centre back, this is actually a lot further forward than necessarily in their box, and instead Bob jumps up instead. This fullback has kind of stayed, and that means the fullback is kind of down this way to kind of be that more attacking space, and I think Bob understands that that is a winning gap he's going to leave in order to press this guy intently, which I think is a fair enough choice in this given circumstance. And this is one of them moments where before he came to Man City, I was critical of his off the ball play in defensive areas. Can he understand when they're baiting him into traps? And I have to admit, in this one instance, he really does adapt really well. As you can see, he is marking the guy he is supposed to. This guy's supposed to be marking him all game. That's his man-to-man. But something that he actually notices, Reijnders, he notices that this could be quite a bait that they're putting him in. And what I mean by that is actually instead of getting him the ball, they want the ball to go to the player behind him over into this area and kind of take that past him. Obviously, Bob, like we said, is missing a man, so that guy has come inside. Now, instead of being really tight to the player that he's supposed to be marking this guy, he just kind of eases off him at the last second and is able to win the ball back in between the two players that he has done brilliantly with. This gets Man City straight up the pitch. It's that high turnovers that you want them to do, and then they can get the ball into the attacking areas where they can pass the ball into all the players that they want to, which I think shows a really good level of Reijnders off the ball. Now, although that's all the nerdy stuff of off the ball, and I think he did that really well throughout the game, I just kind of wanted to show that one example because I thought it was a good one. Obviously, we're here for that on the ball quality, and I think in this game he showed two big qualities in two different sort of game states. One was against sort of lowy, midi block sort of teams, and one was that sort of counter-attacking style, which may be a little bit more used to at his time at AC Milan. Now, first of all, this sort of low block here is very interesting. Wolves are playing this dirty system. Look at this. Oh, too many players back. Not nice. And they've even got this like weird trap thing going on in this centre here, which this is not cool. We don't like to see this at all. But what Man City did with this is they actually used different players to make that sort of front five that you would see. Obviously, you expect Doku and Bob to kind of hold the width. You expect these players to come in there, such as Silva and Haaland. But Lewis would actually come a lot from these sort of inverted areas and make these sort of runs into these areas, which is very interesting. Instead of having to have Reijnders in these attacking areas where you can't really get him to build up on the ball outside the block, and you would have to kind of rely on Nico Gonzalez, who isn't exactly the most exceptional passer out there. He will do a comfortable passer, but he ain't going to go and be that most attacking threat that you want in these deeper areas. So obviously, that means who do you platform in this situation? You could platform out Nori. I do think in more games he will do that, but you do platform Tijjani Reijnders. Now, in these areas specifically, he was just amazing. There's something about him when he picks the ball up. Where's the ball? He picks the ball up in these sort of areas and is able to just drag players towards him, go past him, and then not only kind of shovel his teammates out the way so they make runs for him, but also just make runs himself. He just finds gaps into places where there doesn't look like there's gaps. And when you've got this really tight low block, I know obviously the gaps don't look as big on the tactical board, but these gaps are hard to get through. It's hard to find passes and hard to find things that work. And sometimes it could be quite daunting to even run at a team that are looking like this in the first place. This sort of motion for a lot of players is just to pass it around the side and keep that ball. But obviously that is not what Man City wanted to do. Now, to show you this, I kind of wanted to show this example here because I kind of think it's a great representation of that. You can see the sort of block that we have been talking about that this team is in. How do I draw a line? There you go. Look at this. Not fun. No one likes to see this. Even as non-Man City fan, this is not something I would be wanting to go against and watch my team do. But with Tijjani Reijnders, there is a fundamental fact of he just does not care. And you look at this situation, you look at, well, he could pass it in between the lines, you know, could try and make these passes, but is it that person going to get enough time to turn? Is the player going to come out towards him? Are they going to recover? But what he does is so unique. He kind of baits to go for that pass on the outside. He kind of baits this pass into John Stones here, which you're seeing, and the player kind of goes out accordingly to kind of block that. And as soon as this person moves up, he sees that space in behind. It's actually a very unique move that he does a lot. And he kind of fake shots his way past this player, absolutely takes him on, outstrengths the guy behind him, bear in mind, you know, keeping him at arm's length, not letting him get into the area in front of him. And then he's able in this area to just keep the ball and allow other players to just run off it and get into that area. Because when he's in this sort of situation, that makes the centre-back want to come towards him. He's broke not only his own line in defence, which is an absolute mess at this point. It's a zigzag. That's not what you want to see. You don't want to see a zigzag. That's not good. Haaland's not even in play, bear in mind. He's over here, like waiting because he knows what's going to happen with this play. And as soon as Reijnders gets this sort of space, the defender goes up and then instantly he tries to recover. He knows that Rico Lewis is going to get him behind, and straight away he's able to chip that ball over to Rico Lewis. This isn't really a low block, but it's more like a mid block in space, and he takes it incredibly well. And it's a brilliant pass to Rico Lewis, who just obviously squares it to Haaland, who was sitting offside the whole time, didn't even need to move, and that's where he's there to score. Now, in terms of this low block work as well, this isn't the only thing I want to discuss. There was also other ways I think that he was quite effective for the team, and it's because he is just a little bit of a roamer. There's obviously sort of constraints that you have as a Man City player. You're always going to have a certain level. You can't just go where you want fully. But there's a few times in these situations, maybe let's say Wolves get the ball and they clear it, and then it's won back by maybe Nico or Diaz in these sort of defensive areas. At this point, Reijnders might have already made that run like we just saw, and he kind of is in these sort of positions, you know, like in the sort of full-backy mid-space areas where you would most likely see someone like Silva be that more like aggressive recoverer, because that is something that Reijnders isn't brilliant at. He's not really that deeper recoverer player. Doesn't matter when you've got people like Silva next to him. Now, a lot of the time, he was used as this sort of overload on this right-hand side with Reijnders, obviously Lewis and Bob, and the ball would come to Bob on this side, and instead of Reijnders always making this run, he did make the run sometimes. I mean, through the defense, he mostly stayed in this one area because very much like he wants that ball to his feet, very much like Martin Odegaard's style of I'm going to sit in these areas. And instead, what that meant is Lewis kept making the run, which you want to see a lot more because that is a better use of him in the first place. But you might be asking, why is that even useful in the first place? Now, the reason why it's useful is not only obviously we have an overload quick on this side, but the reason why this specifically can be something that's going to be used in the future for City is when Lewis can't get up the field, when Man City break quickly and maybe Wolves have got back a lot quicker, there's a 5 back there, Lewis, let's say, is in these deeper positions, or maybe covering someone, maybe he's just doing something else, you know, I don't know where Lewis is, let's say he's over here. And instead, you get these sort of 1v1 opportunities where Bob will be in these wide places where players will come out to him. We've seen a lot of wingers really struggle when they have to be on this byline, 2 players come out them, and, you know, Bob could lose the ball, and that's not exactly what you want when you've got a break, maybe if Lewis is not even there in this quite big gap here. Now, what Reijnders does is he really goes around and helps his teammates. So there's a lot of times where he would come down to this right-hand side, he would make runs, or kind of just stay in that position like we were talking about, and it would pull players towards him. It pulls this player here, and it allows Bob to have a proper one-on-one, and Reijnders just gives him that space, which is what any good sort of right central midfielder does in these sort of setups. Now, the other way I wanted to show Reijnders is kind of in these counter-attacking ways, which I think we all kind of knew if you'd watch his VOD from the other leagues where he has played. These situations, I don't really know know what Wolves were doing the entire time. And I will say Man City's press was a little bit off in terms of this kind of overload you kept seeing in this right-hand side for them. And there was a lot of times where Wolves would be able to just kick the ball to maybe this guy who came deeper. He'd flick the ball onto this one and he'd be completely through. Out-Nori's positioning was a little bit off sometimes, and Doku isn't the most intense presser ever. But obviously with Reijnders' goal, which is one of the main things that everyone's talking about, it comes from this situation. Yet again, Haaland's kind of waiting to jump into that press. Bob has come a lot closer. Man City are in quite a compact area, although that some of the fullbacks are out wide. Now, Reijnders and Silva are in this sort of DM central midfield positions, while Gonzalez is protecting the two defenders. Now, the funny thing is, Wolves just have the ball in about this position, and they just try to pass this ball, and they go way too far, and it goes over and goes just straight to Bob, who turns and then runs off. Now, a lot of these players can obviously make these forward runs, like you see, like Haaland's obviously going to make it. Bob was carrying the ball. That's expected. But as soon as Bob is taking this ball away with him, straight away, Reijnders, from about this position, I would say, just makes this insane run where he goes all the way across and is suddenly in head. And this is what his brilliant effect of the team is. He is just so effective off the ball. He's an incredible runner. He just really covers a lot of ground, and it just makes him so viable in these teams. And like we see it here, obviously Bob wins the ball back here. Reijnders is here at the time. And then if we skip a couple of frames in head, straight away, if we can take this off, you can see Reijnders is here, Bob is here with the ball, and Haaland's here. And something yet again that is really crucial to this is the runs that these guys will make off each other. Bear in mind, these players haven't played with each other that much. A couple of games professionally, a lot of friendlies, okay. Straight away, Haaland makes this run to the right, and instantly Reijnders knows he needs to make this run to the left. That's where the space is. Doku is not going to run that far and that quick in that big space, and he doesn't have to when Reijnders does it for him. It gives Bob a pretty easy option to go left or right, and obviously Bob does a brilliant pass just in head of Reijnders so he can run onto it. And then Reijnders, obviously, like you probably expect, brilliant finish across the goal straight in. So it's just one of them moves on the counter attack where you look at Reijnders and you go, that is what you want from him in the team. Straight away, be alert, be ready. Doesn't even need to win the ball back. Maybe someone else wins it back. Bob does brilliantly in this motion, but just being that sort of end product on the counter and not being heavily reliant on Haaland. I know Marmoush could arguably be someone that could do that as well, but he will be in the more wider positions like a Doku when it comes in terms of the press. So I think they did this on purpose. And another thing is, we talk about being an outlet, we talk about being a player that covers a lot of ground, and Tijjani Reijnders really did that in this game. Straight away here, Trafford, who actually had a really good debut, I think, went long straight to him over the top. He then instantly is looking up and seeing what he can do. He sees Bob, he sees Haaland. That's the two players he needs to make this attack happen. Now, he's so intelligent with the ball. He carries it this entire way. He carries it into about this area. Yet again, baits the defender towards him. This is basically his signature move. He waits for players to come towards him, waits and waits and waits, and then last second, instantly makes that pass over to Bob, who then has that space out wide. And then yet again, as soon as that player goes out to cover Bob, Bob just puts it back into Reijnders, which is so much like the old Man City, which we used to see with Bernardo, with Foden, all these players that were linking up in these different ways with these quick 1-2 moves, trying to get at the end of the day the end product to the one person you want to have at least touches in the game, Erling Haaland. He baits another defender towards him. There's only one player at the defence, and this is the fullback at this point, and Doku's here. And Haaland has done very well to kind of just sit off and wait for things to happen. This is one of the examples I will say Haaland did great movement, and he is ready for this chance, which obviously he runs up to and scores brilliantly. And like, obviously there's a lot in this game. There's a lot to talk about Tijjani Reijnders, but it's just so scary from a non-Man City fan perspective to have a player that's in these boxes and still being able to just keep the ball. His ability to keep the ball in these areas, his dribbling, while his running, while his technique is all top. And I think in this game that proved that. And now obviously to give a little bit of context, we want to go through some of the stats, but in this game he was incredible. 3 shots, I mean a lot of them were kind of late in the game, obviously he had that goal, but 52 out of 57 passes. He created 1 chance, had great XG with 0.33 in a game with +X assists, which is pretty good. But had 1 shot out of 3 on target, 82 touches, 6 touches in the opposition box, 7 passes into the final third, 2 accurate long balls, 1 cross accurate, 1 successful dribble out of 3, and was dispossessed 4 times. So he's doing a lot. There's some things that aren't going to work, and I think out of the possession you'll have to learn a little bit as well. And he isn't still going to be that big defender. Like I mentioned, that one instance of him learning that press, and I think it will only get better. He isn't a big defender guy. You look at his defensive stats, not amazing. You look at the duels he also had, not great. And he also commits quite a lot of fouls. Also, that can be dependent on Wolves just being a very bad team as as well. Might go up against better teams, you never know. Now, overall, let me know what you think in the comments about Tijjani Reijnders, and please like and subscribe for any more Manchester City videos. If you want any more videos yourself, please let me know who I should do a video on, and I will do it, I promise. See you in the next one.